Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is for you. Today we're looking at the Microtech SBD, which is a fixed blade, double edge. This one's a full serrated, you can get it in the plain edge as well. We're going to be doing some measurements, generally talking about it and going from there. I'll probably first start with the holster because sheaths are really important, especially with a fixed blade, because obviously you don't have a clip. With a pocket knife, the clip becomes important, because if you don't like the clip, it doesn't work out for you, you might not carry it. Same thing with a fixed blade. If you don't like the clip, you may not carry it at all, which can be unfortunate if you have a really nice knife that you just don't like carrying. And then it's a matter of finding someone who does either custom leather sheaths or kydex, and then paying the money for that, and maybe not even liking what you get even then. So we'll start with the sheath. The clip it comes with is fantastic. It's really heavy duty. I have a video short on my channel where I talk about clips real quickly. But this one is fantastic. You can see the hook in there that it gauges in with your belt. That grabs really well. It's pretty strong retention on that, and that it hasn't been bent out, even though sometimes I'll try and fit it on a larger belt and I have to pull it out pretty far, and it still bounces back just the way it should, which is fantastic. I did at one point find the maker based on that logo, and I completely forgot the name. I'm sure if you look into the clips, eventually you'll find them, but it's a good clip. If you just look for that logo, you'll know what you're looking at. With that clip style though, there's a rising of the kydex to fit this clip. So if this clip had a failure and you weren't able to bend it back, or if it really snapped or got messed up, if you had to remove it, you would still have that little rise there, unless you theoretically cut it out. Then you'd have some blade, you would just have a little bit of the center of the knife exposed, which isn't the end of the world. It would just be a little bit of the fuller there with the holes visible, which isn't the end of the world. And then I imagine I would have to get that crimped rivet out, and then I would have to put on a different style clip. Of course, in that situation, if I'm pretty happy with this, I would probably send it back to Microtech and try and get a replacement, something along those lines. But if I didn't want to do that, I would go for something like this. This is a stainless steel clip I got from Tandy Leather, which I have in the area, so I just ran in and grabbed one of these. This one's stainless steel. I also have another one in plastic, which is nice because it's less likely to scratch like a car or something if you're walking past something, getting close to stuff. This particular clip is going on this holster like this, or sheath, whatever you want to call it, and I use two of them to keep it from getting sideways. Even though it still does have a little rotation, it works good on this knife. And this is on the inside of my belt, so this is the showing side, so I'm not too worried about these scratching anything if I bump up against it. I did have to drill these holes out to fit these. So whatever was going on with their clips, also with the plastic one, I had to drill those holes out. If you get the plastic ones and you don't have a drill, you can hand file it with just like a round file or a deburring tool, and just kind of keep swooping in there. You'll be able to cut it out. These are the bolts. This bolt, I think, came with the Kirahi sheath, and I'll show you the thing that wasn't fitting in the holes. So it's got a Phillips head that threads into there. This is their proprietary screw. You don't really need their proprietary tool, because you can just grab your shirt and push up against it. Like if I were to take this one off, I would just press my shirt up against there to create a little grip without tearing my fingers up, and then unscrew it, and it works totally fine. But this measurement, you'll want an inside diameter, the ID, or the ID of this hole is going to be around there, just under 1/4 inch. So you want the outside diameter of your bolt that you're replacing it with to match that. If it's a little smaller, it's not the end of the world, but you'll have a little slop, a little movement in there. But the inside diameter of these holsters was a fair bit thinner than that, so I had to drill them out. So if you're shopping holster clips, sheath clips, I would look into the sizes of the inside diameter. They are pre-drilled out too. Especially like plastic's not such a big deal because a little bit of handwork and it works. With stainless steel is it's not impossible to drill out, but especially if you don't have a good rigid drill set, cutting fluid or anything like that, it really eats up your drills and gets hot and dulls out your drill bits really quick. That's a big part of the clip so far. It is a Kydex with that carbon fiber look, which is nice. They were black. You might be able to see in some spots, but I wear this a ton and it gets smoothed out and the brass starts showing, which I think looks nice, honestly. I wish the hardware was bronzed as well, like the Signature series. This is an SBK. The Signature series has bronzed hardware, a DLC black coating, and carbon fiber handles. We'll get into the Signature series thing a little bit more here. It does have a drain hole. You can see there's a little bit of a fluting out at the end there. So any fluids, some minor dust and particles that might get in there will fall out, which is handy. One thing that would be nice, but also would kind of ruin the uniformity of the holster and also kind of dig into your hip, is a little bit of a thumb push for pulling it out. It's not necessary. This clip did come with it for the Microtech SOCOM Alpha, which I do have a review of up already. So that gives you a little something to push into. They just, when they're making the clip, they just heat that up with a heat gun and then just flay it out and use your thumb to kind of push it out like that. And that gives it a perfect little pushing spot. Now you don't need that because this retention of the clip is good enough. You can just pull it. This is a little bit short, so there's not a ton for your finger. But with this knife, that handle is longer, so, and it swells out a little towards the end, so you have a little bit for your palm to grip onto. There's also that if you really wanted to just grab from there, which I never do, but you could. You could put a lanyard on there. I don't plan on doing that, but you know, some people like those. Depending on the knife and the situation, I sometimes put lanyards on stuff. But realistically, when this is in your belt, there's enough retention there. That clip is solid enough, it's not going anywhere, that you can just pull it straight out and it's not a problem. It's only when you're kind of out of the belt and you're just playing with it that it becomes a little spooky, because if you pull back and then overcorrect forward, you might do that, which, you know, is kind of your fault if you do that, to be honest. So that's the clip. Good retention. This grabs the G10 part of the handle, which is fluted out towards the top. It's a little thicker there, and that's what creates your retention right in this area, and that works perfectly fine. Great sheath. I don't have any problems with that at all. The Microtech SBD is essentially the same. There's ribbing here that isn't on there. I'm not sure why that is. I just now noticed that, actually, looking at them with you. You can see what the original rivets look like. They were black. A little bit of rubbing on this one. Everything else is pretty much black. But this knife has only been carried like maybe twice, and it's kind of a shame. It's a beauty. I've used it to cut up steaks, but to be honest, it's my wife's knife, and yeah, it's hers, so I don't get it carried a ton. But while I'm holding this one and talking about it, I pretty much went already over the basics of the Signature series. You can get this plain edge on both sides, or serrated on one side and plain on the other. I haven't seen a double serrated one. I have seen a double serrated one where it's serrations here and here, but the upper half is plain edged, which is a little odd to me. I would just go all the way or not, or one on each side like this. But anywho, with the signature series, you can get carbon fiber versus the G10, which feels and looks fantastic. It's very smooth, really nice. The bronzed hardware versus the what I assume is a stainless steel hardware. And it is just Torx screws. It's not proprietary handle hardware, which is fantastic. Not that you would ever need to pull them apart, as far as I can tell. But if you really wanted to clean it and you just got it absolutely filthy for some reason, you could do that, open it up and clean it out. Or I've seen, I can't remember the company who does it. If you dig into it, if you're really into these knives, you'll find them, I'm sure. There's kind of like a jewelry company or that makes custom lanyard beads and stuff like that, that did a silver, I think a bronze, and I didn't see pictures of solid gold, but he said in this post, if you were really a baller, he would make a solid gold one. A solid gold handle scales with skulls inlaid to there, which looked pretty cool. I'm not really into skulls, but it did look nice. But yeah, there's that. People do upgrade these sometimes. I don't see it a ton, but every now and then you see it and it can look cool. So that's holster, handles. I've talked about the blade options, and while I'm talking about that, as far as the blade goes, serrations are super useful. If you when I was first getting into knives, people talk trash on serrations all the time, and now that I'm looking back, I think it was coming from people who didn't really use their knives very much, and maybe they did and are totally comfortable with sharpening all the time. But if you're really using your knives a lot, serrations are amazing. For one thing, I got filthy fingernails, but if you ever need to trim a fingernail, those grooves just get perfectly in there and they're super sharp, and you can just clean the nail up real quick. You can also sharpen a pencil. I just have a pen on me, but for sharpening pencils, it's just perfect for that tip. If you can imagine a pencil, the pencil tip right there at the lead, it's just perfect for pencils. If you're like on a construction site and you got pencils that you're using for your work, or whatever, you're doing something out bushcrafty wise where you want to fine point on a piece of wood for spear fishing or something like that, or marshmallows, you can totally use those for that. Also, I'm cutting ratchet straps, opening big bags of material somewhat often, and if you're ever stuck in a car, you got to get a seatbelt open or get through, for whatever situation, you got to get through some clothing or some aggressive material. Serrations just go into it. Even cardboard, especially cardboard. If your plain edge is slightly dull, cardboard becomes a nightmare. But if you got serrations, even if you beat them up, it just shreds into cardboard. So serrations are amazing. I need more knives with serrations. I'd actually love one of these, either the Alpha Mini or the full-size SOCOM Alpha in full serration. That's on my bucket list for sure, because I love this knife, but when it dulls out and I'm trying to do cardboard or something, it's pretty annoying. But serrations are amazing. People also say, oh, you can't sharpen them. Well, if you really trash your serrations that much, you really could sharpen them. I don't have a diamond file on me, but I do have a diamond tipped Phillips head. Theoretically, if you had to clean that up, I would just take a diamond file and do that. You could even put it on like a work sharpener, maybe tape it to the handle, which has like a reciprocating handle where you just kind of do that movement. And I would just go in one spot and do that, and that would clean it up if I really needed to. There are people that do professional, well, I say professional, but people that will serrate knives for you. And so I imagine a guy like that would either clean it up for you or reprofile it, even though you're going to be removing a lot of material. But this is a nice thick knife, so there's a lot of material to be removed. If you really just went through a lifetime of abuse on this edge and you had to clean it up. And M390's really great steel from what I've experienced so far. I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to find some myself, but I was using this in hot, sweaty environments and not cleaning it up. Let me see if I can get this to focus. It looks like rust. Really, it's just junk on there that I haven't cleaned up because I carry this knife a lot. These two are my most carried knives. And if this was full serrated, I'd carry this one a lot more. Because you don't always want double edge, especially if you're doing a little woodworking dealio. You don't always want that second edge. Sometimes you want to grab up here and get detailed into something. I have resharpened this edge and I laid it back a little bit, so that made it a little more delicate, but it is still sharp and it does a good job. I actually laid it back pretty aggressively. I found out that you don't want to go too far back on the edge, and for obvious reason that makes it more delicate because it's more of a fine point towards the tip, and it'll dull out easier and get damaged easier. This one got a little damaged up here where I was doing something with a knife you're not supposed to do with knives, and I damaged it, but I cleaned it up a little bit on the sharpener. I just didn't want to take out so much material, but it didn't really bother me having that there. Other than that, fit and finish wise, I actually don't think I have any complaints on this whatsoever. I'm trying to see if there's anything I remember being anything that caught my eye, and there really wasn't. Before I sharpened it, the symmetry of the sharpening was on point. Nothing to complain about there. These little scratch marks are from the sheath going in and out. It creates that little rubbing mark, which isn't the end of the world. Eventually that might start damaging the serial number, the date of birth or manufacturing, but I've carried it a ton and that's all it's got so far, so I'm not too worried about that. This is serial number 1714, made in 02/2022, M390 steel, USA, and that is Sebastian I'm going to mispronounce his name, I should have wrote it down. Berenji? I think he's a Russian or Ukrainian immigrant to America, and he makes some incredible blades. Normally his knife brand is Borka, B-O-R-K-A. If you look up Borka blades, you're going to see some really cool stuff. Really high price, but fantastic stuff. So that's a bunch of it out of the way. Let's go into some stuff I wrote down. It is the Microtech SBD. Retails around $340, 4.45 blade length, 9 inches overall length, 6.36 ounces weight, G10 handle. You can also get carbon fiber, M390 steel. And I feel like I saw a DLC black coated one of these that wasn't a signature series when I was just looking them up a minute ago. Microtech does stuff in like production runs, so they'll do a big batch of them, like the Microtech Purity. I didn't see this for a year or so when I first got into Microtech knives, then they pop up and I was like, what is that? I haven't seen that before. And they did a batch of them. This is serial number 5177, so less of these than that so far. So they'll do a batch of something, release it, make a bunch of other knives, and then eventually come back to a design. But stuff does get discontinued, so if there's something you like and you see it in stock and you're not going to hurt yourself financially, it's a good idea to get it, because then you got it and you got a slab of M390 steel that you're going to have the rest of your life, unless you sell it or it gets stolen or you find a way to break it. Yeah. Alrighty, so what was I going to next? These are the measurements and numbers from their website. I don't recall exactly what I paid, but it was in that ballpark. One thing I can check for funsies is the thickness behind the edge. Just for funsies, even though I laid it back a ton on my own. That is .42 thou behind the edge, so it does thicken up pretty quickly. It's not the sliciest of knives. It's not the most utilitarian. It's more for cardboard boxes, opening stuff, you know, opening stuff, quote unquote, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. But symmetry-wise and just aesthetically, I really love this knife. For some reason, it gives me Lord of the Rings vibes. And I don't know how to explain that, but I'm happy with it. And that's the story I'm going with. So let me do some other measurements of different points of the knife so you get an idea for the size of it and what you're looking at. I'll just get a couple knives out of the way. All right, let's go for the width of the blade. 1.606. It's a pretty wide knife, and at the point here, or the oh man, what is that called? 1.632. What is that called where it stops your hands? It's riveted there, so if you do have to do pushing cuts, you have a good place for your thumbs, and this is rounded so it sits nicely back in your palm. So even though it's not the most utilitarian, like, it is really comfortable to use. The handle works perfectly. I just can't remember what that's called. The guard or something like that. Obviously there's the katana name for the, I'm looking at my two katanas on the wall right now, but I don't remember the name of that either. But it doesn't matter. 1.63 there, so it's a little wider than the blade. The thickest part in the back, 1.189. And the handle, just for fun, because if you have large hands, sometimes getting a small handle is really annoying. So the functional part of the handle, if I kind of go to the corner up here, basically 4.5 inches of hand space. And I have large hands. I typically wear extra large gloves, and I have a little extra in the back there. Even if I wanted to choke up farther, it works good for me. There's also a little channel here for getting your fingers there if you're, or setting a thumb if you're doing some sort of close-up cutting. So ergonomics wise, it's pretty good. What else can I measure? The thickness of the handle. Let's do that. Let's do back here, 0.56-ish. In the middle it swells up. Do 0.697. It thins down here, 0.55. Up here it thins down again to 0.525-ish, and then thickens out to 0.713. Blade thickness, 0.194. And overall length, I believe they said it was 8 or 9 on that thing I just read. Yeah, we're like right at, yeah, basically right at 9 inches. Should we remeasure the, that's 4.35-ish, but I'll just use this so it's easier for you guys on the camera to read what I'm looking at. Yeah, 4.34-ish. I was thinking 4.35-ish on there, but it's hard to get because it's such a tapered thing. Basically a little over 4 1/4 on the length, which is totally nice. I'm not sure what else I can go over on this thing. It's pretty fantastic. My daughter's attacking the door trying to get in. Even the channels in there look nice because they have to drill through there and then I assume end mill that out, that channel. And then there's like a satin polish on the handle, like a flat polish. And then I believe this one's a stone washed finish. That can be hard to pick up on camera, but they have stone washed and apocalyptic, which has more like squiggly lines in the finish, if that makes sense. And I don't even know if they offer just a satin finish. Usually it's stone washed or apocalyptic. And some people experience more of that dirt sitting in stuff with the apocalyptic finish because it might be a little more porous, a little less fine. But realistically, M390 is not going to rust on you unless you're just in the ocean, leaving it in water and for a long time. It's not supposed to rust on you. So if you keep it clean, it'll look nice. Even if you don't keep it clean, it's still gonna look good. Did I miss anything? This is my second, this is my second most carried knife. I carry this every single day at work. When I'm out and about doing weekend stuff, I carry this guy. Sometimes I carry this guy at work as well. Usually this isn't my weekend guy, just because I have this, which looks awesome. I originally got that for my wife, and she just wasn't vibing with it. Part of it was how hard it was to pull out. And then I got this one for her, which has somewhat of the same problem. There's no thumb stud, even though this one could totally get away with it. The SBK, they totally could have fluted out the end right there like this. She loved this one a lot more and adopted it. She doesn't carry it a ton, but I think she just likes how it looks, and I can't blame her. It's amazing. I think this is an apocalyptic finish now that I'm looking at it. It's got DLC, so it's a little harder to know what you're looking at, but if you imagine that without the black in there, it looks a little more rough than this one, if we can do the comparison. Maybe I'm just talking nonsense. Yeah, I think this is apocalyptic and this is stonewash. Very minor details. If you get one or the other, I wouldn't complain either way. I'd be happy with both of them. I would like one of these in the Signature series, because it's not going to be as flashy as the satin steel. That black will blend in a little bit more. Not that that's a huge concern. It's just kind of cool if you're a stealth operator kind of guy, or you just like if all your stuff is black and you just want to black it out. For sure, go for the Signature series. You're going to pay roughly $100 more, so you're going to be looking more in the $440 to $480 range, if I recall correctly. I think that's what this guy cost, in that ballpark. I've also seen this non-Signature series with like a OD tan Cerakote. That was really cool. I don't think I've seen any tan versions of this one. For some reason, I don't think that would look as good. This one looked totally cool and tan. I almost got one. It looked a little bit more like something I'd want to take camping. This looks more like something John Wick would carry, you know. But anyways, I'm at 27 minutes. Hopefully that was useful. If you got any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching.